Hey, everybody, it's me. It's Curtis, Counselor Curtis. That's what they call me. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're old to the channel, welcome back. We started to start the channel back up again because, as you can see, there's a little bit of craziness happening out there in the world. Our media seems to have abandoned us in some unusual ways. That is to say, it's basically state media at this point. So we need somebody to look out there and see what's going on and offer some interpretation. So I am appointing myself to be your advisor or guide, or at least offer some type of opinion one way or the other about what's happening. Okay? So welcome to the show. I'll be posting these things up here on YouTube. I'll be streaming live. You're welcome to comment. I'll try to get to the comments. If you leave me a question, I'll answer the question next time around. And I'm going to stream some other places too, probably Twitter, Rumble, Locals, who knows? Amazon, you never know. Anyway, welcome to the show. Today is July the 21st, I think, 22nd, 2024. So I'm going to address the first issue in just 1 second. I'm going to double check everything here. So welcome to the show, and I'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. See this. Okay, it looks like it's ready. All right. So here's the question that I have for you today, and I'll try to provide some guidance. Are we in West Wing or House of Cards at this point in July of 2024? Growing up most of my life, I always figured we were kind of in West Wing. And if you're not familiar with these two series, the basic difference is in West Wing, everything, these are television series, everything in West Wing is above board. If there's a problem, it's very serious. Everybody gets together, they talk about it, they work it out, and then they solve it. There's no deception or backstabbing or anything like that in West Wing. Anything that happens is a miscommunication, things like that. But House of Cards, now that's different. In House of Cards, people die, people go missing, shit happens all the time, and it's crazy. But it seems in some ways more realistic. Now, you might think, looking back, the last incident that we saw, and I'm talking mostly about the executive branch at this point, the last incident that we saw that sheds any light on this distinction was the description of a meeting that took place at the end of Obama's presidency between President Obama and Hillary Clinton and then director of the FBI, James Comey, and I think there was somebody else there as well. In any event, I specifically remember the way that they relayed the conversation was that during the conversation, Obama said, well, everything we do here, and this conversation was about the Steele dossier, the implications of the Russian interference in our 2016 election, and the statement from Obama was, we need to do everything here by the book. Now, that's a West Wing style statement, right? That the implication there is we're in West Wing and everything needs to be done by the book. The fact that he said it is sort of almost a House of Cards implication. That is to say, you know, if you're going to say, hey, let's do everything by the book, well, then that's because you want somebody to hear that shit. And it sort of makes me think that that might have been the time when we slipped from West Wing into House of Cards. But we may have been there for a long time. I mean, this may go back to the Federal Reserve. I mean, you realize there's a group of people who are authorized to literally create money. So, I mean, what are we talking about here? They're certainly powerful players in the federal government. The president is super powerful as well, because he's the only one that can really spend billions of dollars at the drop of a hat, because he can declare war. Everybody else needs to go through congressional hearings and pass a law and stuff like that. Now, they do it and everything, but um, the power is much more spread out. The president can make or break dozens of very large companies with the wave of his hand. Not to mention, he controls the outcome of the legislation as well with the veto. So, very, very powerful person, and probably worth killing over. Probably at this point. I mean, who are we kidding? They kill people for a lot less than this. We know that the federal government is basically a mob of people that is in control of, as I said before, the money printing and the military, and not to mention all the intelligence agencies. So we're in a situation where they would be loath to give up power. But the situation is turned up even hotter now for a couple reasons. The biggest one being, hold on, I'm going to grab my coffee. The biggest one being if you look back over the Biden presidency at what the Department of Justice and the various prosecuting officials like Letitia James and Fani Willis and Jack Smith did to Donald Trump and how they did it, you can make a very strong case that they're involved in a RICO collusion case to oust the president, to keep the president from running again, to imprison him. You know, it's remarkable that two of those people were able to run campaigns out in the open, basically describing how they were going to effect a bill of attainder and go after Trump. And then they did. And the regulatory authorities in charge of their licensing did nothing, said nothing. And so that just shows you how far up it goes. And obviously, if we're in a situation where the meeting between President Obama and those people at the end of his presidency was House of Cards, if we look at the federal government through that lens, then what we see is there is most likely a group of people who are very well paid, and they know, whether it's explicitly or implicitly, that their job is to keep the presidency in the hands of, or the power, I should say, in the hands of the power brokers, probably the military industrial complex, but it could be the banks as well. I mean, surely. So I guess Trump today announced he was going to keep, I heard, the Federal Reserve president in place after he is elected, which is interesting because that's, of course, the group that prints the money. So he's not going to wholesale change the money brokers, which makes sense because you can't do that because he's going to want to spend the shit out of some money, you know. So my supposition here, and this may be inaccurate, but my thought is that they probably, and by they I mean the deep state or the power brokers, probably can't convince Trump to get on board. They're probably going to want whoever the Democratic candidate is to win. And that, I mean, that's my supposition at this point. If we are in House of Cards, then those people need to protect their asses because there's no way that they could survive legitimate investigations into what they just did. I mean, the impeachments, in and among themselves, the impeachments were just ridiculous. All the January 6th prosecutions, I mean, to the extent that people were sentenced to trespass and such, okay, but people were given years in prison for resisting arrest, which was basically not giving their name when they were asked, or anything remotely, not following an order, anything. And so those people that went after him are subject to the same or even more appropriate legal action. And I got to believe that they're not going to allow themselves to suffer that, right? How could you? There must be dozens of people who could be subject to arrest and prosecution and imprisonment for the rest of their lives for just the way in which they went after President Trump from a legal perspective. You could easily make that argument. So um, we are certainly in risky territory here. And that brings us, I guess, to the assassination attempt. So I'm going to cut this off and let this end here, and we'll consider and revisit the question of whether or not we're in West Wing or House of Cards.